Hi, here's a question for you. When was the last time you really thought about who your customers were, how old they were, and how they liked to communicate? The question is, if you don't, you might well come unstuck. My name's David Taylor, and I'm the Chief Training Officer for the Digital Company. And I'm going to talk to you in this short video about the 5 generations living in the UK and how they communicate, and more importantly, how can you engage with them to make sure your business can grow and be successful. So, we're going to kick off. We've got 5 generations, as I say. The oldest generation are what we call the veterans. These are people born before 1945 and they love the old world. They like face-to-face meetings, they like to read and they read avariciously. They listen to the wireless, they like terrestrial TV, and many of them are really baffled by today's digital world. However, some of them, even this age group, are using things like tablet devices and smartphones, probably because their children and grandchildren have given them and showed them how to use it. And they love the modern world. They love to be able to FaceTime their grandkids. They like to be able to WhatsApp people very easily. You know, give people technology, they're going to use it. So if you've got veterans, you've got to think about how you're going to reach them, and it's probably going to be used mostly around traditional advertising. Then we've got the baby boomers. Now, the baby boomers are a very interesting group. These people are born after 45, but before 1964, so they're in their 50s and 60s. Now, a lot of these people hate the modern world. They literally hate it. They can't stand the fact that everyone's on their phones all the time. They don't really understand online marketing. They don't really understand things like cloud computing and mobile technology. All of that is all Greek to them, really. And they're really struggling. And a lot of them, because no one's explained how to do it or the benefits of it, then they simply hate it. The natural thing as a human being, if you don't like something, it's bad and therefore you're not going to do it. And the unfortunate thing is a lot of business owners are that age. A lot of politicians are that age, a lot of C-suite and management teams, they're of that age, and they really cannot stand the modern world and they just want to go back. Why can't we just use the phone? They tell their staff, just lift the phone up and speak to someone. That's not necessarily the normal way of doing things now, and they're really struggling to get their heads around it. But the interesting thing about this generation is that half of them love technology and they can't care less about what they used to do. It's about driving the business forward. How can I make my business grow? How can I be creative? How can I be innovative? Could I be using video? Could I be engaging using emojis and things like that to my customers? So this group, interesting group. So if your target audience are in their 50s or 60s, you can't necessarily assume that they're not on technology or assume that they are on technology. The thing is about trying to understand how best to reach them. And then we've got my generation, which is Generation X. So these are people, we're roughly in our mid to late 30s and 40s. And we are the people who've seen the biggest change in our lifetimes. Interestingly, we are the biggest users of the main social media sites. So that's Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. We're the biggest users. It's not the kids, it's the middle-aged, it's the grey-hairs like me who are using it and using it a lot. We're also the last generation ever to buy paid-for newspapers. That's seismic. That's really, really seismic. And you've got to think what effects that's going to have. Now, we're already seeing fake news issues. We're all seeing people sitting and communicating within silos. It's a really big problem. But as I said, Generation X, we've seen computers come in, we've seen mobiles come in, we've seen the internet come in, we've seen all these different changes, and we've adapted to it quite well. But even in my generation, there are lots of people who simply don't use social media yet. So again, you can't say, oh, well, they're in their 40s, they're bound to be using social media. Well, you don't know that. We very happily read online, we very happily engage through email and things like that. We're already, though, getting sick of email because it's overused. Although we've grown up with it in the workplace, we're starting to migrate against it, and it's having less effectiveness. Then we've got the millennials. So the millennials are the so-called digital natives. These people are aged 18 to 36, 37. They don't remember a world without the internet, without mobile phones, without technology and texting. They're the first generation to go on to social media. Interestingly, in areas where there's really good internet access, they're the first generation to come off Facebook because they've already changed to things like social messaging sites. A few things about this generation. They don't really enjoy reading and writing. They much prefer the medium of video or infographics or images, hence why Snapchat, Instagram, they are really, really well used by that generation. They don't really like to be marketed to or sold to. It's all about engaging with them. They also, as a general rule, are much more community minded. So they're much more likely to engage within the workplace. Don't forget that many people watching this video, many of you run a business, you will be employing millennials, and they engage in a very, very different way. Word of warning though, they don't enjoy using phones in the traditional way, i.e. picking a phone up, dialing a number and speaking. They don't enjoy particularly speaking on the phone. So again, that's another thing you're going to have to get your head round. They enjoy video then. They enjoy infographics and images and engagement. And then we've got the final group of people, Generation Z or Edge. These are the kids who've grown up with mobile internet, with touchscreen technology. If they can't get on to a website within a second on a mobile, you've lost them. Very short attention spans. They think that the internet is ubiquitous. No one really knows where this generation are going to go. No one knows what their consumer habits are going to be. But the fact remains is the oldest of them are now 17, and they're going to be coming in the workplace, and they're going to be consumers. So what you need to do is think about how you're going to engage with this group and keep an eye out on what they're going to be doing. So there's the 5 generations for you. Some takeaways then. So what you really need to think about is, number 1, you need to think about not making any assumptions about your audience. Don't say, oh, well, they're 40, therefore they're not going to be using social media. Maybe they are. Don't make an assumption that, oh yes, oh, they're millennials, so they won't read. Well, some of them still do enjoy to read, although most of them don't. So don't make any assumptions about anything. Next thing you need to do is think about what is your content which you're going to use to engage with these people, and what channels are you going to be using. Are you going to be using traditional? Are you going to be using online? Are you going to be using social media? Are you going to be using social messaging? You really need to think about all of those. And then the final thing you need to do is you need to constantly test and measure. What's working, what's not working, and if it's not working, what changes do you need to make? So if all of this seems like a real challenge and a real concern for you, well, we're here to help at The Digital Company. If you'd like to talk to us about how maybe we can do a training course for you, or how we can come in and we can educate you, then please do feel free to get in contact. We'll be very, very happy to help. Thank you very much for listening.